Johannesburg. To news here now, and the government has suspended fracking in England for the foreseeable future. The ban comes after technical reports said it was not possible to predict the probability or size of severe earth tremors caused by the extraction of shale gas from the ground. Labour, the Liberal Democrats and the Green Party have already called for the ban to be made permanent. Our business correspondent Katie Prescott reports.
It's been one of the most controversial issues of the last decade. Fracking, the process of getting gas from rocks using pressurised water and chemicals. But the resulting earthquakes and disruption have infuriated local communities and environmental campaigners. They're delighted by today's news.
I'm absolutely delighted. We knew that a decision was going to come out, last night, midnight in fact, but we daren't hope that it was going to be as good as it is. OK, it's not a ban, but it is a moratorium, and I can't see how the moratorium can be lifted until they can prove that fracking can be done safely.
The government had hoped that sites like these would change our energy landscape, providing an abundant, homegrown source of fuel that would reduce our gas imports and cut carbon emissions. But now they've changed their mind, stopping just short of a permanent ban.
There's no doubt that extracting more natural gas in the United Kingdom would be very attractive. But we've always been clear we can only do that if it can be done safely. We will follow the science. So in future, should the ability to be certain about seismic events and so on, we will look at it again.
But Labour says they don't trust the government's U-turn and fear it could be an election ploy. Today, the regulator says it's not safe because it can't predict how many earthquakes fracking will cause, and it says that the impact to local communities is unacceptable. As a result, companies must stop their operations. Fracking's industry body says it is fully committed to working with regulators to demonstrate it can operate safely, and that 72% of the UK's gas will be imported by 2035 if we don't take advantage of our shale gas. The big question now is whether the industry will be willing to invest any more money here in the hope that the science will one day find in their favour and the regulation could change. Katie Prescott, BBC News.
Well, our correspondent Philip Norton is at the Preston New Road site near Blackpool, where fracking was suspended in August after a number of tremors. Philip, what's been the reaction there?
Yes, well, of course, this is where much of the concern about the process of fracking has been focused in recent years, and this is where the site, of course, where the work by Quadrilla Resources was taking place, where the work was suspended in August following the earthquake, the 2.9 magnitude earthquake, which added to the concern. So clearly, there's been a huge amount of celebration here. There's a high strength of feeling, obviously, in this area. For many miles as you drive along, there are many banners and posters put out by local people who live here, but also these protesters who have been here for many years against the work that's been taking place, and many people have been beeping their horns, have been cheering as they've been going past. There is obviously concerns as well that from some of these people that we've been speaking to that this is a bit of an election stunt, that this is for easy votes. Some of them also saying that a moratorium is as good as a ban. Now, of course, Labour's policy is that fracking should not be taking place at all. The opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn, tweeted that the pause was an election stunt and that Labour would ban fracking permanently. But campaigners here said that they feel that Boris Johnson in the past has been supportive of fracking too. Now, as I say, some of them feel that the moratorium is as good as a ban, so they're clearly delighted. But this morning, the Business Secretary, Andrea Leadsom, has officially said that it may be temporary, imposed until, she said, until and unless extraction is proved safe. And this morning she told the BBC that shale gas is a huge opportunity for the UK. She said that we will follow the science, and it's quite clear that we can't be certain. The science isn't accurate enough to be able to assess the fault lines, the geological studies that have been shown to be inaccurate. So therefore, unless and until we can be absolutely certain, we are imposing a moratorium. So, however, obviously a sense of relief, a sense of celebration here at this site today, but those that we've been speaking to here say they're not going to give up, they're not going to stop campaigning until a permanent ban has been put in place on the practice.
Philip Norton at the site near Blackpool, thanks very much. Let's talk now to Barbara Richardson, who knows that site well, she's an anti-fracking campaigner from the group Frack Free Lancashire. Barbara, thank you very much for being with us on BBC News this afternoon. I assume that you're delighted by this news.
Yes, delighted. It's great news for us. Having said that, I'm cautiously optimistic because at the end of the day, this, as you say, is a moratorium and not an outright ban. And, you know, I fear there could be an element of electioneering going on here. To announce it just before Parliament dissolves and also prior to a general election, one would question the motives.
The Oil and Gas Authority announced it was conducting this review back in February, long before the election was called. So the government could argue, couldn't it, that actually it's just responding to the report it's received and that the timing is coincidental?
Yes, it is. I mean, the OGA have done the report, but they've only done the analysis on the first well, where there were only 57 earthquakes. I don't believe they've done any detailed analysis on the second well, which Quadrilla attempted to frack this year. And I think that's what they've got to do. They've got to do the analysis on that well as well.
So this explains why the government is saying it will be led by the science, and unless the science changes, the moratorium will stay in place. There's already a ban in Wales and in Scotland. If Labour is elected, it says there will be a ban in England too. Effectively, it would be the end of the industry in this country. You look at a country like the United States, a country like Canada, even Argentina, they have very successful fracking industries. Why can it work there and not here, do you think?
Well, several reasons. I mean, look at the size of those countries. They're far bigger. They've got far wider open spaces to do fracking. The shale beds, the geology is completely different in those countries. They have relatively narrow shale beds. And also they don't have the same number of fault lines. They're geologically very different to the UK. So, you know, the other thing is we're very densely populated here. So things like the impacts on local communities will be far greater. I mean, it's not just about the earthquakes. You know, fracking poses many other risks, not just to earthquakes and tremors and things like that. There's more environmental risks, risks to public health, and obviously, you know, the climate change, we're supposed to be moving to zero carbon. And, you know, why would you invent a whole new fossil fuel industry at a time when we should be moving away from that and towards renewables?
What has been the impact on the community itself? Because I suppose a lot of people have seen the site and said, well, actually, it's not like having a ruddy grey oil well drilled outside your front door. A lot of it is hidden away.
It's not actually. I mean, these sites are quite huge. They're 6 hectares. The drilling rigs are here. They're limited to 35 metres, but the drilling rigs are quite tall. Recently, they've been doing flaring at Preston New Road, and you can actually see the flames coming out the top of the flare stack. You can see the nitrogen. There's lots of heavy good vehicles entering the site, coming on and off the site. There's noise associated with it. You know, there's lots and lots of other impacts, and it is very noticeable. And at the end of the day, it is very much an industrial site. And, you know, there will be hundreds of these.
Sorry to interrupt you. I mean, has that had an impact, for example, on property prices in the area?
It has here at Rosica. I mean, I live close to the Rosica site, which was the other site, which Quadrilla were trying to frack at. And we did get a fall in property prices. People were having to accept quite a hit on the properties. Some people couldn't even sell the properties, to be honest with you, because nobody wants to live near a fracking site. So it has had an impact, but unfortunately it's difficult to analyse that because these are the only 2 sites. You know, there's other 2 sites that are actually one under production and one's on hold. So it's difficult to say what the actual impact would be, but all I know is that people were looking at properties in this area and they contacted me as I'm chair of a residents group, and they were actually asking me, you know, is fracking going ahead? We don't want to move into the area if fracking goes ahead.
Barbara Richardson, anti-fracking campaigner from the organisation Frack Free Lancashire. You are, for now at least, frack free. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.